Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. So today we're going to talk about the Curtis Reeves trial. And hopefully I can make that make sense in about 4 minutes. Curtis Reeves was a retired Tampa police captain. He was a homicide detective, and in his many years on the force, he'd never had to draw his weapon or shoot anyone. And in spite of what the media would lead you to believe, that's actually pretty much the experience of most police officers nationwide. Very rarely do police officers have to draw their weapon, and even more rarely do they have to fire them. Nevertheless, if you were to pay attention to the media, you would believe that pretty much everybody who is a police officer runs around with their gun out of their holster most of the time just looking for someone to shoot. It's not the case. And most people know that. Most people who are not allowing themselves to be brainwashed by the media. Now, the media manipulates news. I know this isn't a new revelation for most of the people who watch this channel, but they do. They manipulate the news. Let me give you an example. When I was a junior in high school, somebody who had otherwise great judgment appointed me as the editor of the school newspaper. So when the juniors lost the softball game, the annual softball game, to the seniors, and it was just a slaughter, there was no way to manipulate that score in such a way as to report it truthfully, yet still provide some cover for the juniors who went out there and tried to do their best. So my solution was to talk about the entire softball season. Now, the softball season was one game, but the entire softball season, and what I said was that the juniors had had a marvelous year and they'd finished in second place, whereas the seniors finished next to last. Well, that's absolutely true. They won the one game that they had to win, which was the junior-senior game. They came out in first place, which in this case also happened to be next to last. You see, there's all kinds of different ways to frame things in such a way as to make them seem less like what you know they are and more like what you want someone to believe they are. And that's exactly what happened in the Curtis Reeves trial. For example, take a look at how the media framed this story. Right. So essentially this was all about popcorn, except it was never about popcorn. It was about somebody who believed they had the right to control the behavior of other people and that the rules didn't apply to them. Now, I am terribly sorry that the lady whose husband was killed lost her husband. I'm sure she loved him very much. We often have relationships with people who are violent and abusive, and we still love them. And I suspect that's probably what was going on there. But to couch this as a problem with someone who was violent because someone threw popcorn at him is wrong. Couching this story as someone who got assaulted because they threw popcorn in someone else's face, or someone who got shot because they threw popcorn in someone else's face, is simply wrong. But if the only thing you paid attention to was the news media, that's what you might think, because that's the way the story was reported. However, at trial, the evidence came in different from that and established that this man was essentially attempting to hit Mr. Reeves. Now, Mr. Reeves is 77 years old. He's an older person. And in Florida, if you attack and attempt to assault an elder, someone who is over the age of 65, like me, that's a felony. And the Florida law gives specific cover for the use of deadly force in the defense of a violent felony. So the jury followed the law and got the right result. The media frames it in such a way as to make it look like he was killed over popcorn, because the media wants to portray any use of defensive firearms as somehow a win for blood in the streets and violence, when it's not. The gentleman defended himself. That's the bottom line. That, my friends, is a lesson in media manipulation. Sort of like when your wife says, I know it's been real comfortable for you to sit back there in your office and do the videos sitting in this nice leather chair, but it would really look better in the dining room. It would really look better in the living room. It would really look better somewhere else. And so, because you're a good guy, you get manipulated. I know everybody understands how that works. Now, I want you to understand something else. This is not limited to the left-wing media. If you watch Fox News, they frame stories in such a way as to make any Democrat look awful, with the possible exception of Tulsi Gabbard, who I kind of think they're sweet on. But nevertheless, they frame their stories in that way. You can't get away from media manipulation. You can't get away from slanted stories because we're human. We tend to view things from our own viewpoint, and we tend to repeat them from sort of prismatically through our interpretation of events. And as a result, what comes out is something less than the hard news and something more than an honest recitation of the facts. So there you have it. That's the explanation for the Curtis Reeves verdict. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get this out. I will try to do better next time. I have been away on spring break down in Florida, where in spite of the best efforts of the drivers down there, I survived. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Please keep your comments clean. This is a family-friendly channel. And if you would, I'd really appreciate it if you haven't already to go over here and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our content. You'll note that I always put this proviso at the end of my videos instead of at the beginning like many people do, because I don't think it's fair to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you don't like the content. So if you don't like the content, you shouldn't subscribe. But if you do, please subscribe. It'll help me, and eventually I might actually be able to get this channel monetized. So thank you very much. I appreciate you watching. I'll catch you on here next time.